and welcome. You are listening to another episode of Assurance in Action, the podcast that covers key assurance topics brought to you by Intertech. My name is Jessica D'Amico, and today is Earth Day, and their theme this year is Save the Bees. So I'm thrilled to be joined by Sandra Meixner, Britta Bellerson, and Klaus Beckman, who are here to talk about honey crystallization and what companies are doing to prevent it. So if you guys want to go around and introduce yourselves, that would be great.
Okay, thank you, Jessica. I'm Sandra. I'm a food chemist. I'm working in the honey industry since over 20 years now, starting at a packer on the industry side and now working for Intertech since 11 years. So honey is my passion, and this amazing product we want to talk about today.
Hi, I'm Klaus. I'm a food chemist too, and I'm working in the honey business since 2003. And since 2003, I'm involved in honey testing mainly, and I would describe myself as a honey expert, and I've also some education in beekeeping. So I'm one of the honey experts here at Intertech in Bremen.
Hey, my name is Britta. I'm a food technologist, and I worked in the food industry since 8 years, 4 years in the topic of chocolate, and nearly 4 years at Intertech with a special focus on honey production. And we would like to give you more information today about the topic of crystallization for honey. Yes.
Thanks, guys. So honey crystallization, what is it? What does it look like, and why does it happen?
Yeah, that's a good question. Honey is a natural product, and you cannot change or add anything to it, but it reflects the nature of the countries that it's from. And I traveled around the world, almost to every continent, and in every country you have beekeepers, but the honey is always different, as it really depends on the flowers and everything which is growing for the same time. It tastes different and it looks different. It can be very bright or very dark, and also liquid and crystallize. So there are a lot of parameters that you have to look for to understand what's happening.
Yeah, I think concerning the crystallization, we first need to talk about how is honey composed, from which constituents. And this is in honey, this is mainly water and many sugars. So more than 90% of honey is composed of sugars and water. And the main sugars we are talking about is fructose and glucose. Fructose and glucose, the sum of these both monosaccharides is about 70 to 75%. And the other constituents in honey, this can be organic acids, flavonoids, protein, of course, and other components. But in terms of crystallization, we need to focus on water and glucose. These are the parameters which mainly, or the main intrinsic parameters which influence the crystallization of honey. Concerning the sugars, the monosaccharides in honey, this is mainly depending on the floral origin of the honey. For example, an acacia honey has a very large fructose-glucose ratio. On the other hand, rapeseed honey has a very low fructose-glucose ratio. And glucose is the main sugar which will crystallize in the honey. So the higher the fructose-glucose ratio is, the lower is the tendency of the honey to crystallize.
Yeah, crystallization always happens when you have more, for example, sugar in a solution, then it's soluble, and honey is a supersaturated solution. So crystallization happens, and that's very natural at this point. The question is just, when does it happen? And yeah, that's a question of the raw material and the parameters Klaus just explained. But I think there's also a big technical input on this.
Yes, that's right. So not only the honey by his own could be the problem, no, the production side, the production settings, the storage area, and the raw material, as Sandra said, could be a problem. And if you want to set the crystallization point at the latest possible point, then you have to control all these things um, in a focus and to set all the best conditions to the honey that the crystallization point will not start. And for example, if you have everything in place and your raw material is very good, the fructose glucose ratio and the water content, as Klaus says, are very good, um, and you have the good temperature settings in the beginning to solve the crystals in the production, then you are on a good way. But you have to consider, for example, the production speed. So honey is very sensitive, so that you have to use your pumps in a very slow speed. If you have too much speed, then the honey will get air bubbles in it and so on. And air bubbles are a crystallization starter. So a lot of different points, like the pumps or the pressure in the system or the temperature in your complete systems, needs to be under control. You have to be aware at which point in your production is which temperature in your honey. Do you have 40 degrees? Do you have 50 degrees? Do you need less temperature for the filling process, and so on? So every step should be known from your production manager to have so less crystallization starters as possible. And for example, if you produced your honey and you have the right settings and you have no air bubbles in it or something like that, you have to ensure that your honey is stored on the right conditions as well. For example, if you have a creamy honey, it's not very good to store your honey at 25 degrees. So you have a better creamy honey result if you store your honey at 14 degrees. If you want to have a clear honey without any crystals, then you should stay the honey at 25 degrees and not at 14 degrees. So it a little bit depends on what you want to do. But if you want to eliminate the crystallization, then you have the temperature in your storage area under control. The same with the transportation process. You should be aware that if you transport your honey at the winter time for maybe 5 degrees outside, that this will have any influences on your honey and the crystallization. So if you have a clear honey and you store it at 25 degrees and then you put it on a transporter for maybe 2 or 3 or 4 days at 5 degrees, so without any temperature regulation, then it might be possible that the honey starts with a crystallization. And yeah, there are a lot of many factors which you have to consider before, during, and after the production.
Yeah, this is really quite complex from all the different sides. That was the reason why we formed this team, which is working for the honey service Christec, to really discover all the different sides and to bring a solution for our customers. And maybe one point, if you see a jar on the shelf of liquid honey where crystallization starts, that's natural. It's nothing harmful or that you should be scared of. You can still buy it, put it in a warm water bath and melt the glucose. Then everything is fine again. Same is for creamy honey. where you might have a dark orange liquid on top. That's the fructose separating from the rest of the honey. You can just stir it and homogenize it again. That's what's happening with natural products, right?
Yeah, or if you have the white dot points on the packaging, on the glass, if you have a creamy honey, for example, that's natural at all. So it's not something which is bad for the honey. So it's only because of the heat which was wrong, right?
Exactly. And yeah, maybe we should be aware of this topic and still buy the products so that they are not thrown away, especially in these times right now.
That is correct. So the problem, of course, is when you have a liquid honey which is recrystallizing in the jar. This honey or these jars seem to be like adulterated for many customers.
Right.
So this is the reason why they don't buy such honey, because it seems to be not natural, but as Sandra mentioned, is natural. And of course, it is, this must be broadcasted to the consumers. This is what is done in many cases. It's described on the jars that the honey is or that crystallization is a natural process and so on. But on the other hand, when you have these jars in the stores and the shelves and you see it, you will not. Many consumers will not buy it. That's a fact. And so this is the reason why many honey bottlers and honey producers have the aim to reduce the speed of crystallization, and this is what we try to help all these honey bottlers.
Yeah, to be able to help the honey producers, we developed a system which is called QuizTech, and QuizTech is a system where you can use it for your fresh samples, liquid honey samples from your production line, or in the beginning of your raw material selection. So you can see if you have a clear honey, if your honey has still any crystals. So if your temperature was not correct, for example, or if you generated some crystals right after, directly after the production, maybe. So this would indicate that you have any other problems during the production, air bubbles, bee wax, bee parts, wrong fructose glucose ratio, or something like that. So it could be a lot of factors. But if you use that during your production, you can directly change your settings and see if you have a better result if you change something. And this system could be very helpful to set the crystallization point at the latest point as possible to your honey, so that your customer don't have the problem, should I buy this honey? Is this adulterated or not? No, you do your very best in your production line to extend the crystallization point with our system. Our system will help you in each production. It's a routine control, should it be, so that you have an idea, is everything good? And could you sell your product and all the parameters which you would like to have, and you can be sure that your honey will not crystallize maybe for, Sonny, what would you say, maybe for 9 months, for 12 months? Depends on the production, right?
Yeah, 12 months is absolutely possible, even longer.
Yeah, it's a little bit depending what you use. If you use glass, if you use squeezer, and so on. And do you have a lot of corners in your packaging type, or something like that? So there are a lot of factors, but if you have our system, you can learn with our system your product and your packaging size and your differences in production lines and so on. All these kinds can have an impact or influence on your crystallization point. But 12 months or more would be possible, yes.
And overall, if you buy these jars, you help to save the bees. So
yeah.
But as just described by Britta, I would just like to add that the complete project ChrisTech, what we offer now to our clients, is also, it's a combination of these shelf life tests, just what Britta described with our instrument, what we have developed here in our company, and it is also a combination of different tests which should be conducted on the honey itself. Meaning to check whether the intrinsic parameters could have an influence by themselves. For example, as mentioned at the beginning, the fructose-glucose ratio and the water content. This is, I think, mostly already done by the honey bottlers. This is the first point to check whether I can use a honey for a liquid honey or only for a creamed honey. But also, what we also check in our during our ChrisTech project is checking for sediment content. The pollen count, for example, is very important. In the United States, for example, many bottlers filter the honey in order to remove the pollen. When the pollen is removed, the pollen can function as starter crystal. And when the pollen is removed, of course, you reduce the number of starter crystals, and then you can, of course, slow down the speed of crystallization. And this is also one thing we will check. We can check in our lab. What about the pollen count, and could it have an influence on the speed of crystallization? Or the wax content is very important. Wax is a usual constituent in honey as well. More or less a contamination, but it's natural, of course. And Britta and Sandra have mentioned the production process and the importance of the temperature. And for example, when the temperature is too high and the max is melted during honey production, and then finally when the honey is cooled down, this wax can recrystallize and also function as a starter crystal. So what we can check is is the amount of wax in the honey, and if this could have an impact on honey crystallization as well. So it is a combination of shelf life and using our instrument together with some tests of the honey in terms of the natural composition concerning honey crystallization.
So if we know if you have any problems, or if your honey crystallized after 4 months, for example, then there's no general solution for your honey. So mainly you have to look deeper in your process to see which raw materials do you use, which production settings do you have. As Klaus says, if the temperature is too high, you might have a problem with the bee wax maybe, or if the pump speed is too high, then you have air bubbles in it, and the air bubbles can start the crystallization. Or if you take all the pollen out, it could be that you have some filter material in your honey, and the filter material can start the crystallization as well. So it depends how you produce, because the honey production is not the same in each production. Each honey production is different. You use different machines, you use different temperatures, so nothing is the same, and we cannot deliver the general solution for you, but we can develop something for you and with you to get the best honey on the market, and to have the longest clear and liquid honey what you want to have. And this is something which we can provide to you as a project, we can say it, but we can give it to you as a single thing as well.
Yes, but I think it's very important what you just said. Honey is natural, and what we can not do is to deliver a complete solution for any honey, for any company or whatever. Each honey is an individual case, and we need to have our own strategy, or you need to have your own strategy, and this is what we can offer. We have the instruments, what we have developed with the analysis, with the shelf life, and so on, and then yes, exactly, Britta, each honey, each product is a single project then finally. So it's not easy, and in some cases it may be difficult to create a solution. In many cases, it is indeed based on the composition of the raw material, of the origins of the honey. It is. We are, of course, we are not able to give a complete solution for everything, for any honey with the same parameters. So each each honey is a new task for us, and but we have the instruments, and we have several instruments in our Crystech project, and this is what we are working with to help you solving the problems with crystallization.
Yeah, it's an individual approach, right, for every customer. That's what makes it interesting in the end, and the variety of issues. So, yeah.
And we have a lot of fun with that as well. So it's not only for you to improve your product. No, we love this product. We love honey, and we love to work and with the product, and we love to improve your product and to save waste on the market. So if the customers will not buy it, it's not good for us and not good for you. So we love to work with that.
And we learn.
Yeah,
with
really.
Every honey, with any new project, we learn.
Yeah, really.
And gaining knowledge is also makes us stronger in this position. So with every new project and final nice project, we have much more experience for the next one. So this is the advantage with working in this area.
Thanks everyone for your time. If you're interested in learning more about honey and Crystech, please follow the links in the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and rate us, and follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter.